Right guys, welcome to a new video, and in this video it's going to be a new series. So this series is going to be called Learn the Basics, and in episode 1, which is going to be today, we're going to be talking about macros and personal calorie allowance. So for example, BMR and also our TDEE, our total daily energy expenditure. So I made a video probably a couple of 3 or 4 months ago, and the video was everything I've learned within the 6 years of fitness. Now, that video was a good video, very constructive and very informative. However, and the video has got a couple hundred views, but I feel like I want to kind of dilate down a bit more. So today, like I say, we're talking about macros and personal calorie allowance. So if we start off with macros. Now, macros is short for macronutrients. Okay, so we have macronutrients and we have micronutrients. Okay, so if you've studied economics, you know, macro is looking at the bigger view, okay, and the micro is looking at the more in-depth view. So same with the macro and micronutrients. Your macros are going to be your large or your main components. So we have proteins, we have fats, and we have carbs. Okay, and then if you wanted to go a bit more in depth, you've got within carbs you have of which is sugars, and you have fiber as well. So some people like to subtract the fiber intake from their sugar intake and their carb intake to kind of get net carbs. So you'll often hear net carbs, you'll often hear that in like protein bars, so 20 grams of carbs, however there's only 2 net carbs, because if there's 18 grams of fiber, some argue that the fiber shouldn't be counted as carbs because the fiber is digested differently in the digestive system. So therefore you can have a certain protein bar when you're like a ketogenic diet because it's net carbs, not gross carbs basically. So let's have a bit of a more in-depth discussion on these protein, fats and carbs. So when I say to you macros, I automatically want you to know that we're talking about protein, fats and carbs, the 3 essential macronutrients. And then I also want you to understand that what do these mean? So for me now, I can say protein, and I know, I don't even have to know, I just look at the food and I know what's in the food. So when I say protein to you, many people will say meat. So meat is a source of protein. Now within meats, we have different types of meats. We've got white meat, we have chicken, okay? We have red meat, we have steak, we have salmon, we have lots of different types of meat. So should we just have any type of meat? Well, I mean, there's going to be certain types of meat that have different benefits to different sources of meat. So we have salmon, which is going to be a very good source of, if anything, krill oil. So you're going to have some kind of krill oil in fish, salmon. So you've got fish oil and you have krill oil. Now, krill oil is a DHA fatty acid. You're going to have a lot of your omega-3s from your salmon. So it's going to be very high quality fats. Now, would you maybe get that from chicken? Well, no, you wouldn't get that from chicken because chicken is a very lean protein source, just like turkey. So chicken and turkey are going to be very lean, and what I mean by that is they're going to be stripped. Basically, it's going to be mainly just fats. Mainly just proteins. Very low in fats, very low, basically no carbs at all, because chicken is literally just protein. Okay, so you have minced beef, steak. So the redder meats, okay, when we're talking like minced beef and steak, and even steak burgers and other burgers, they're red meat. So they're going to have some kind of fats in them, okay, and some will have some carbs in them, like your burgers will have some kind of carbs. But the main point I want to get across is when we start talking about proteins, I want you to also think about other foods that contain protein, not just meat, because not everyone consumes meat. So we have eggs, for example. They have a 50-50 ratio between fats and protein. So they have no carbs in, and they have a 50-50 ratio between proteins and fats. So 5 grams of protein, 5 grams of fat. Sometimes they're a little bit higher, depending on the egg size and the quality of the egg. Normally about a 50-50 ratio. We also have Greek yogurt. Okay, so Greek yogurt has a decent amount of protein in, low on carbs and low on fats. We also have protein powders. Okay, we also have nuts and seeds. So it's very important to kind of know what protein, where you can get your protein from, because not everyone is going to be eating meat on a daily basis. So some of the sources where I get my protein from would be even beans have protein in, but then you're going to argue that, well, beans have 52 grams of carbs per can. So they do have carbs in, so they're not a strict protein source or are made of protein. So in short, protein sources that we're going to go through, like I say, I mentioned some. You've got various amounts of meats. Okay, we have different types of protein powders dependent on what you want to have. There's hemp protein, there's pea protein, there's whey protein, there's slow digesting protein. There's loads of different types of protein powders dependent on obviously what type of protein you would like. Different qualities, different absorption rates. So my main message is though, let's learn what proteins are and let's apply them to our diets. Okay, so the next category we have are carbohydrates. So we have slow acting carbohydrates, we have fast acting carbohydrates, the simple and complex carbohydrates. And then we also have on our fruits, we also have glucose, fructose. So these are different types of carbohydrates and they spike the insulin levels very differently. So for example, like bananas are not going to spike your insulin levels as much as maybe sugar. Okay, or as much as maybe white bread. Okay, so it's actually going to be very different to be consuming bananas than it would be to have obviously a tablespoon of sugar. I hope that makes a lot of sense. Even though it's sugar, the body is going to be, the molecules within that sugar are very different. Okay, they're very different between glucose, okay, and fructose. The body digests them in a completely different way. So having a banana with a GI of 55 is going to be different to having white bread with a GI of 71. Now the GI is the glycemic index. And the glycemic index is a rating from 20 to 100. The higher the number, the faster your body is going to produce insulin to break down the blood sugar levels, okay? So white bread's going to actually be less beneficial to your body than a banana would be because the GI is going to be higher. And the food metabolically on the body isn't going to be as good because your body's having to produce a lot more insulin to break down the food. Now, if you really want to do that on yourself, then that's fine, but I would try and keep the GIs under 60. Personally, I keep them under 60. I don't see there's no need to be any higher than that. You can have a lot of foods within the GI range, which is a healthy range, and you don't really need to be having over 70. So when we think of carbohydrates, we want to be thinking of maybe our pastas, our rice, our beans. We also have like our fruits, so bananas, we have oranges, we have apples. So most people know what carbohydrates are. We have different sources, but the main healthy ones we want to be talking about, like say our sweet potatoes, decent beans. We can get organic beans, 5 beans, lots of different types of beans. I stay away from pasta personally because it's gluten. You can get gluten-free pasta. I just tend to stay away from it. And then the rice that I have is a gluten-free rice. Gluten is a sticky glue protein that is found in quite a lot of things. It causes inflammation to the body, so it inflames the body with inside it, and that's not really good for the body. So the less inflammation you can cause, the less pain you're going to have, the less chronic pain you're going to have as well. So a lot of the pain that we have, like a back pain or shoulder pain or wrist pain, is due to inflammation within the body. So the body's inflamed. That's why we're in pain. Okay, so the next one is fats. And this is one where it's quite controversial because although people think fat makes you fat, it's very untrue because if I listed most of the fat sources that I'm going to list now, you'd be quite shocked by them. So avocados, for example, are mainly fats. There are 12 grams of carbs per avocado, but 10 grams of those carbs are fiber. The majority is fats, okay? The same with eggs. We have we have 50-50 ratio between protein and fats. Nuts and seeds are mainly made up from fats. Okay, so we've got avocados, we have eggs, we have nuts and seeds. We are also going to be having dark chocolate is made up mainly from fat. There is some carbs and there is some protein, but my main point is it's probably 70% coming from fats. And some of the healthiest foods on this planet are avocados, eggs, dark chocolate, and nuts and seeds. So they're just four choices of fats there. We also have organic meats, okay, so grass-fed beef, steak, that's as well as protein, it is also fats as well. It is more protein than fats, but it is a fat source. We also have organic grass-fed butter, okay, we also have cheese is a fat source as well, some protein in there. But these are like the categories I want you to start thinking about. So when we think of fats, I normally tend to think of the ones that have the highest amount of fats to carbohydrates and to protein. The same with the protein, I tend to think of what's got the highest amount of protein in within that protein source to kind of get it in my head. Like I say, mainly the meats, protein powders, and other things like that. The ones that have the main protein source in them. The carbohydrates and the protein are like a secondary macronutrient to be focusing on. Like when you need to get your protein in, you should be thinking of like the main ones that have the protein in, and then you can mix in carbohydrates and fats within that meal. So for a simple meal would basically be, think of a protein source, maybe some steak burgers, think of carbohydrate source, maybe some sweet potatoes, think of a fat source, maybe some avocado or maybe some eggs or something like that, maybe cooking butter. So you've got like a 3 macronutrients, and then obviously you want your vegetables as well. So it'd be a handful of spinach and some broccoli or some asparagus. So this video has gone on a little bit too long, so I'm going to put the part 2 in the next video, where we're going to be talking about personal calories, our total daily energy expenditure, and basically how many calories we need to be eating each day to hit our goal. So this video went on longer than I wanted to, so that's why I'm going to split this video into 2. I'll call this episode 1 part 1, and then I'll do episode 1 part 2, and that will be where I'll talk about the personal calories. So thank you for watching this video. If you thought this video was good and informative, please give it a thumbs up. That really shows me that you're enjoying these videos. And if you've liked the video, please subscribe to the channel. I'll be putting more videos out on a regular basis. And other than that, guys, I will see you all in the next video.